All right, so today we are taking a deep dive into something really fascinating. We're going to be talking about the world of jinn, as described in the Quran.
Okay.
And more specifically, we're going to be zeroing in on Surah Al-Jinn, which is, as you know, a chapter entirely dedicated to these beings and how they reacted to the Prophet Muhammad's message.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I just find this so interesting because we're talking about a realm where, like, the human and the supernatural kind of, like, intersect, you know?
Absolutely. And before we really get into the heart of the surah, I think it's worth just laying some groundwork. So for those who may not be as familiar with Islamic tradition, let's talk about who the jinn are. In essence, they're these spiritual beings created from smokeless fire.
Right.
And what makes them so interesting is that they have free will, just like humans do, and they're capable of, both good and evil.
Right.
And what's fascinating about this chapter and why I think it's so ripe for a deep dive is that it presents a perspective that's totally outside of human experience.
Right.
It gives us this really unique way of looking at the Quran and its impact.
Yeah, and one of the things that I find so interesting is that, here you have these jinn who are essentially eavesdropping on the Prophet Muhammad as he's reciting the Quran. And their reaction is kind of surprising,
It is. I mean, you'd think, right? You'd have this maybe fearful reaction or rejection or something.
Right, exactly.
But instead, it's almost like they're captivated.
Yeah.
They're drawn in, and they describe the Quran in really powerful terms. You see words like magnificent, a beacon of truth, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And what's even more remarkable is that they even declare their belief in it.
That's wild, yeah. And to me, it's just so interesting that they instantly seem to kind of get it. You know what I mean? Like they seem to immediately grasp the core of the message, which, as you know, sometimes humans, we struggle with that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really great observation. And it begs the question, right? Like, what was it about the Quran's message that resonated so deeply and so immediately with these jinn?
Yeah.
Was it the language? Was it the style? Or was there something else entirely?
Yeah. What do you think? Like, why do you think that is?
Well, I think if you look at the text itself, it really suggests that what really resonated with them was the message itself, and particularly the emphasis on Allah's absolute power,
right,
and oneness, which of course is a core principle of Islam.
Yes.
And the jinn actually acknowledge this explicitly. In the surah, they even criticize their own kind for past misconceptions about Allah.
Oh, wow.
They actually admit that some jinn used to, spread falsehoods.
Yeah.
Which kind of implies that there was this, a lack of understanding before.
That's really interesting. It's like they're not only embracing the message, but they're acknowledging their own kind of shortcomings, their own past mistakes.
It's a powerful display of humility.
Yeah.
I think to kind of go along with that idea of recognizing their own limitations. There's this other fascinating part of the surah where they describe attempting to investigate the heavens, but finding them heavily guarded.
Right.
So they tried to sort of ascend, and they couldn't because they were blocked. And I think that failed attempt on their part actually reveals a pretty profound understanding of their place within the cosmic order. Right. They come to this realization that they can't challenge Allah's power,
right,
or escape His reach. And I think that this really reinforces that concept of Allah's absolute authority, His divine omnipotence, if you will, which of course is a theme that you see throughout the Quran.
That's a really good point. And you know what? I'm starting to think about this. It's almost like encountering the Quran sort of forced them to confront their own limitations.
Yeah.
Which makes their acceptance, their immediate acceptance of it, even more remarkable.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I think that's a really insightful observation.
And what's interesting too is that it's not like all jinn are the same, right?
Right.
The surah actually mentions different types of jinn.
It does.
Those who submit to Allah and those who choose a different path.
Right. And this diversity within the jinn community, I think, is really interesting because in some ways it mirrors the human experience.
Right.
We have this idea in Islam that free will exists for all beings, regardless of their nature. But even with that freedom of choice, I think it's important to note that the surah ultimately kind of shifts its focus back to humanity.
Yeah. It's almost like a reminder for us, right?
Yeah.
As humans.
Right.
Emphasizing the importance of sincere worship and reliance on Allah alone.
Exactly. And it makes it very clear that even the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was just a messenger,
right,
relaying the divine word.
Right. He was not divine himself.
Right. Exactly.
He's chosen to deliver the message, but didn't hold any personal power.
Exactly. And in fact, he's actually instructed in the surah to clarify this,
right,
to make it known that he holds no personal power to harm or to guide,
right,
that everything ultimately comes from Allah. And I think that's a really important point to emphasize, because it reinforces, that core Islamic belief in prophets as chosen messengers, but not divine beings themselves.
And that message clearly resonated with the jinn.
Yeah.
There's even that part in the surah that describes them almost overwhelming the prophet while he's praying.
Oh, yeah. That's such a vivid image.
Right. I mean, they're drawn to him. They're drawn to his connection with the divine.
Right. Right. It's like they recognize his sincerity and the unique relationship that he has with Allah. I think that's really a visual testament to the power of genuine devotion, and how the Quran's message can even transcend the boundaries of the unseen world.
That's incredible. So I guess to kind of like bring this back around to us as the listeners, what do you think all of this means for us? I mean, to me, it seems like a pretty powerful challenge to consider the universality of the Quran's message. If these supernatural beings are finding such profound meaning in it, what does that say about its potential to guide and inspire humanity?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I think, at its core, Surah Al-Jinn really serves as this powerful reminder that understanding and belief can come from the most unexpected of sources.
Yeah.
And it really urges us, I think, to really contemplate the unseen world and the diverse ways that divine messages can be received and interpreted. And I guess, one final thought to leave you with is this. If the jinn were so profoundly affected by simply hearing the Quran recited, how might we deepen our own connection to its message? And how might we explore its many layers of meaning?
That's a great point, and I think that's something that we can all kind of take with us and reflect on.
Absolutely.
As we continue our own journeys. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for taking this deep dive with me. It's been really enlightening, and I think we've uncovered some really fascinating insights into the world of jinn and the Quran.
My pleasure.
Okay, great. Well, until next time.
Until next time.
Take care.
Take care.